Always trust. I'm Nick Clark at COP29 in the Azerbaijani capital of Baku, where the world's attention is focused on tackling the climate crisis. For Bangladesh, the risks are especially severe. Ranked among the top nations for climate disaster risk, the country could lose 17% of its land to rising seas by 2050, wiping out 30% of its farmland and endangering millions of people. But Bangladesh faces more than environmental threats. Just months ago, mass protests and unrest forced out the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus was appointed to replace her as head of the interim government. Known globally as the banker to the poor, Yunus now faces the difficult task of uniting a divided nation. Today, as he takes the world stage here at COP29, Yunus discusses not only Bangladesh's climate emergency, but also political reforms, relations with India, and new diplomatic challenges with the United States, as Donald Trump, whom Yunus once publicly criticized, returns to the White House. Muhammad Yunus, chief advisor of Bangladesh, talks to Al-Jazeera. Muhammad Yunus, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. As head of Bangladesh's interim government, you're here at COP29 in Baku with other world leaders as well. And given Bangladesh's vulnerability, what do you need as a nation to come from this event?
First of all, to make people aware that the vulnerability for Bangladesh is of extreme form. Many countries don't realize it. And there are other countries, an existential issue for them, the island countries. So we want to highlight that what is happening on the front line, let's say on the climate part. At the same time, what personally I try to raise the question, draw attention, it's not about taking some projects here and projects there to solve the climate issue. Climate is a global issue. It has to be solved in a global framework, not a project here and project there. I'm not discarding the projects, they are important, it's important for Bangladesh, but that's stopgap arrangements. You do the damage and you kind of clean up the damage. But you are not stopping the damage system. Mm-hmm. So I said, why do you fix this? Some keep on fixing things while the damage process goes on and get worse. So I'm drawing the process itself, what it is. Right. I said this is rooted in a more fundamental way rather than just one project or the other. I highlighted by saying it is rooted in our lifestyle. So unless we change our lifestyle, we cannot change the basic problem of the environment.
Right, so that's your message to the world.
That's a message to the world.
But Bangladesh is also on the front line in climate preparedness and reducing deaths from extreme wild weather events, and with early warning systems and that kind of thing.
Again, these are kind of helpful for tackling this, but this doesn't stop those things. They will keep coming. You are preparing to tackle it. I said, this is temporarily okay, but fundamentally it's wrong because you're not fixing the system. I said we go back to the fundamental because it's not going to end, it will get worse for Bangladesh and the whole world.
Of course, there were allegations of corruption and mismanagement, which you alleged exacerbated Sheikh Hasina's time and power and made problems worse for the environmental challenges that Bangladesh faces. What transparency measures are you implementing to ensure that doesn't happen?
Bangladesh is kind of deep in corruption because of the system that we had for the last 16 years, mismanagement, misgovernance, destroying of institutions, all the system, all the policies and institutions gone down the drain. So we have a big task of kind of bringing it up and point by point, sector by sector, bring cleaning process, and not just for the time being, fundamental changes, so that we clean it up not for the time being, for the all time to come. In how the institutions can function, how government offices are feared because the moment you get in touch with the government office, somebody is going to torture you because they will squeeze you to get some money and so on. I said this is a shame. Government is supposed to be helpful to people. Now citizens look at government offices as a torture chamber, that once you get into it, they will squeeze you to get more money from you. So that's the corruption part that kind of spread out all throughout the system.
But how do you ensure, I mean, this particular COP is all about finance, isn't it? Raising trillions of dollars, especially for developing nations like yours. But how do you ensure that, given that past history in Bangladesh that is said to have happened, how do you ensure that those environment funds don't get deviated, with corruption to places that shouldn't go?
The environment fund is a small part of the whole thing that we do.
Well, funds in general.
Yeah, I'm talking about fund in general, not just environment fund. One way is not to let citizens be in touch or in presence of a government office physically. So luckily, digitization helps us that way. So you don't have to come physically. You do it through your internet, through your digital system and so on, and do everything. Most of the thing can be done. So the services that can be provided, financial services and other services can be done through that. So we are trying to transform system like the taxation system, any other system where you have to make payments to anybody, or any service to be get done by the government.
Well, we'll come on to how much time you have in charge of the government a little bit later, but let's talk about India and Bangladesh's relationship with India. It obviously remains critical, especially in terms of resources and shared water and river resources. As you look to the future, how will that be managed?
We have to work together. I mean, this is Bangladesh alone cannot solve the problem. We need collaboration, we need cooperation from India, because all the sources of rivers are in India or passing through India, coming from Nepal, coming from further north, coming through India to Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, in most of the major river system, is the end point where rivers end up their water in Bay of Bengal. So the source is somewhere else, in Tibet, in Nepal, in India. So in order to have a decent system where people benefit from the water rather than get killed by the water, we need to have a good water system management together. It cannot be done alone, and I'm sure it can be done.
And talking of India, of course, this is where Sheikh Hasina is right now. How does your administration view her being there and the statements and pronouncements that she is making from there?
We complained about her doing that because this kind of destabilizes Bangladesh, because she's making speeches calling for movements inside of Bangladesh. This is not going to be helpful for Bangladesh at all. So we draw attention to the Indian authorities that you are hosting her, that's fine, but also please make sure that she doesn't create problem for us. Then we have to go back and complain to you that you are hosting something which is bad for us. So we should be able to kind of resolve it amicably between India and Bangladesh.
Well, of course, she's still calling herself Prime Minister.
She can call herself many things, but that's not what the reality is. And even India says she's ex-Prime Minister, so even her host is not recognizing her anything but an ex-Prime Minister.
Will you be pushing for her extradition?
Yes, because there's a legal process going on, and he's found guilty, and definitely she'll be asked for repatriation.
And in terms of upcoming elections, initially you were to be in charge for a short period of time. There's talk of that being extended. What's the reality?
No, it was never imagined as a short period somebody defined. It was said the highlight of the whole government was reform, because the whole student movement is to create a new Bangladesh. Their word is new Bangladesh. New Bangladesh is not going to come through just holding an election. Holding an election is a repetition of the old ways of doing things in politics and so on. So we want to get rid of those things. And that's what the population of the whole country wanted. Something new, something different than the old. So that means many things. That means reform of legal system, because judiciary was taken over by the government, completely corrupted and so on. It needs the police system freshly designed and so on. It needs most of all reform of the constitution. The very fundamentals of the law is in the Constitution. So how do you redesign the Constitution? So we have defined or appointed commissions, like on the Constitution Commission, Law Reform Commission, and everything else, Election Commission, Election Reform Commission. So that takes time. They're supposed to submit their reports in end of December.
And so there will be no election until those reports are submitted?
Yes, that's the whole idea. I said there are two parallel things going on. One is the preparation for election, another is the preparation for all the reforms done. And it's up to the people, up to the political parties to decide which way to go. The election, we're reminding that the train has left the election on the election route. So it's moving on. So at one point it will be ready for an election. And we'll keep asking the people of Bangladesh, would you like to go to the election now, or you'd rather have these reforms done because you are participating?
But isn't
in
the sense that people
on.
do want an election as soon as possible? That's
They
something
do
that you
want
need
reforms.
to. Ultimately, it's up to you, isn't it?
No, it's not up to us. It's up to them. We're always saying we are consulting with you. We are not imposing anything. If you say, go ahead, do the election, forget about reform, we'll do the election. You say, no, it's very important because no other government can do that. You're the only lucky government in the whole history that you can do this kind of thing. And if all the political parties agree with it, it's done. So we reform that and then give the election.
But
For example,
you must have a sense in your mind about when the right time would be. Approximately?
No, I don't have any.
Or certainly a limit as to how long you are prepared to stay as an interim.
I think everybody has an interim government. We are not his perpetual government. With a regular government is for 5 years, for example. That's about it. Or the new constitution may say 4 years, probably, because people want to move faster term of the. So it should be under 4 years, that's for sure. It may be less. So it's all question of what people want. The population, the political parties want. If political parties say, forget about it, give the election, let's do it, we'll do it. You have a chance, you didn't take it. It's okay
so
for
you
us.
could be interim head for 4 years, which is pretty much an electoral term, isn't it?
I didn't say that I'll be for 4 years. I'm saying this is the term, that maximum that one can grow.
Right.
But that's not our intention. Our intention is to get it done as quickly as possible.
Would you stand for election?
No, I'm not a politician. I enjoy my role, what I have been doing. At my last stage of my life, I'm not going to change that.
Amnesty International have raised concerns about your administration's handling of minority rights. How do you plan to address those issues?
We keep on focusing on the issue again and again completely, because we keep reminding that, look, you are the citizen of the country. Constitution gives you your right, freedom, right to express yourself, right to practice your own religion. These are guaranteed by the Constitution. So this is not something coming from your side. It's our responsibility as a government to make sure citizens enjoy the rights guaranteed by the Constitution.
But there are reports, aren't there, of increased violence against minorities, including Hindus.
Not increased violence, I would say decreased violence. Violence started during the period of revolution. Not because, again, they are Hindus or other religion, because mostly they were Awami Leaguers. So they were against Awami Leaguers. The most of the Hindus happened to be Awami Leaguers. So they were angry with the Awami Leaguers. And these are the people who were active in the Awami League.
So how are you going to bridge that divide? How are you going to resolve that?
Resolve the question
the issue of these factions being against each other.
No, we don't see the factions against you. We said this is a whole one family. We have disagreements, but that doesn't mean we are enemies of each other. There's a law, there's rights. Our job is to ensure all the rights to every citizen.
Of course, you'll know that the new president-elect of the United States, he's weighed in on this, isn't he, before the election. He condemned the ongoing, what he perceived as the ongoing treatment in Bangladesh of minorities. Of course,
This is mostly propaganda. It has totally baseless propaganda. It's unfortunate. Most of these propaganda originates from Indian side, for whatever reason it may be, to keep this tension alive, probably. But in reality, it doesn't exist. We had the case of that there are most celebrated puja worship that the Hindus have, and thousands of puja sites were done with celebrations and so on, with no incidents at all. So,
well, you and he have not got on that well in the past, have you? There's a certain tension, I think I'd be right in saying it. How do you plan to handle that?
Tension
between you and President Trump?
I had no interaction with President Trump in the past, so I had no problem with him in a personal way. If you talk about the Republican Party, I have friends in Democratic Party, I have friends in Republican Party. It was the House which voted for Congressional Gold Medal for me, 100% consensus by the both parties, so we had no problem there. So I never had any problem so far as the Republican Party is concerned, or Democratic Party is concerned, or Trump is concerned. So I don't see any negative thing emerging suddenly because Trump is the president of the United States. I think foreign policy of the United States is not something switches back and forth depending on who is the president. There's a stable part of that policy.
Right, so you don't think he would take a different stance towards the region?
So. Absolutely no way. No way.
Sheikh Hasina alleged that the United States played a role in her ousting. The Biden administration denied that. What do you think about that?
If you are in Bangladesh, you'll be crazy to things like that. Is these students who are demonstrating on the street, giving their life, and when the mobs are moving into their house from all directions, hundreds of thousands of mobs moving to their house. It was her family saying it's time to run away, because otherwise the mob will just take over this whole house and will be done. So she invited the army to help her to get out of the country, and army helped her to get out of the country, go to India. And that's how it happened. It's not somebody instructing from somebody sending some army or somebody. It's not like that. It's student movement and joined by entire population of the country.
When that happened, were you surprised or could you see it coming?
First of all, I was not in the country, so I was not seeing hour-to-hour development. I'm only seeing what is press in the press. I got the net result, what happened, because I was invited to get the government. I got a telephone call that we invite you to form the government. So the country was without a government for 3 days because I was not there. So when I arrived, I take oath and government is formed. So this is the kind of uncertainties, unpredictable things that were happening, and nobody was planning from somewhere to pull a string that this is going to happen. It was not like that.
But looking on from afar, as these events unfolded and Sheikh Hasina left the country, were you surprised?
Everybody was surprised because this was so sudden. She was so entrenched. Nobody thought she would really run away. The students are coming, people are joined by, the students are joined by all the people in the country. There was a massive amount of mobilization from all over the country moving towards Dhaka and moving to her house. So that was something unheard of, this was unplanned for, and nobody knew that this will happen. The expectation was something will happen because the whole country is against her. But it happened.
But not the whole country. Not the whole country.
Whole country, yes, whole country.
Well, there's a fairly large element that were in support of her and still are.
Are you sure there's a large element of it, these people? These are small people, but with lots of power. That's how they rule the country. So when I say whole country, I mean whole country against them.
When you got that phone call asking you to become interim head, how much consideration did you have to give it? Was it an instant response to say, I'm going to do that?
First of all, my first response was, look, I don't want to be involved in politics. That's what I was always trying to stay away from. So I don't think I should get in. I said, you think it over, find somebody else to run the country, not me. So you come back and call me tomorrow, see what you have decided. So they called me next day. They said we debated and discussed, you should take over. So we are waiting for you. And you have to please agree. So finally I said, look, you have given lives for this and you have suffered so much for this. If you have done so much already, I will forget what I had said before, and I'll accept your invitation and I'll come back. So I came back.
Bangladesh's economy is not strong. It relies on IMF support in what is a current financial crisis. How do you view that, and how confident are you that you can emerge out of it?
Oh, it's terrible. The whole economy is in terrible shape. Previous government has made so many big projects, billions of dollars projects this way, that way, and the whole banking system is totally destroyed. Billions of dollars have been transferred from Bangladesh to her cronies and other people taken away. So it's in shambles, and foreign exchange reserve went down. So when we took back the whole system, we got a devastated system, an economy which is dysfunctional economy and so on. So luckily, world has been very supportive of us. So we got tremendous amount of support everywhere. So they will help you to survive, to continue, and so on. So we went to international organizations, we went to the governments and so on to help us out, to provide us the finance, provide us the system, and so on. And they very, very warmly supported us. And that's what helped us to settle all the problems of the banking system, put in shape, and also the international transactions, and make big payments. We already make big payments out of Bangladesh without touching the reserve, our international reserve that we have. We let it alone. By current income, we could pay whoever had those bills.
How and when will that kind of resetting feed down into the man on the street, the pockets, the man and the woman on the street, and so they can feel that they have more ability to spend money?
Already they're feeling it, because this system now is something that they can rely on. It's not wild inflation is not going wild. Our foreign exchange is not disappearing. Our foreign exchange reserve is building up every month. So people are reassured, and their jobs are there. So we see that the confidence is coming back.
What's your assessment of how the political parties are going to be set up within Bangladesh? And first up with the student-led monsoon revolution, which played a key role, as we've been talking about, in Hasina's ousting. You've recognised key student leaders, haven't you? But isn't there a danger of factionalism within any new government?
No, I didn't see there's political parties, traditional political parties are there. They are now free. These people couldn't function before, under the previous regime. Most of them, they were in jail. Hundreds of thousands of these workers were in jail. They're released, they're active. So the old political parties actively participating and so on, and collaborating with the interim government. So we are very happy with that. So we don't see any problem with the political system. They are now waiting to see how to participate in the reform system and also the election.
And that applies to the parties themselves, all the parties that exist now?
That's right.
Can stay and
sure.
submit themselves for election.
Absolutely.
As time goes on. You worked with the Grameen Bank. Your work with the Grameen Bank, of course, earns you a lot of accolades, global acclaim. But it did also draw some criticism regarding the microcredit projects and the kind of long-term effects of perpetuating debt cycles. Did you agree with that criticism?
No, I don't, because they cook up all the stories.
Where did they come from then? Why were they saying it?
Say that they don't like something they didn't think about. Somebody did it. So this is one. And also they bring the element that you charge interest. Interest is a word that's not supported by the religion. So I said, whatever the religion said about interest, that's exploitation interest, not the interest that we are charging to provide a service. So that's what we are. So this is one on the religious side. Other one, political, that he's becoming too popular, so we have to condemn this. It's just good. So I've been harassed by the previous government. I was about to sent in jail. There are more than 200 court cases against me during the past regime and so on. So this is another story. I was saying that the United States has a microcredit program called Grameen America. It works in 35 cities in the United States. I've been working for how many, 10, 15 years now with perfect record. So it's very transparent and so on. Forget about what happens to Bangladesh. You are looking for microcredit. Why don't you just look the microcredit that it exists in a most systematized, transparent system in the United States? And these are the women who start with the loan under $100,000 and pay back every penny with interest and never defaulted any loan. Their repayment rate is near 99% and above. Spread in all cities, or 35 cities around this United States, all 100% women, and most of the migrants women, and also the black communities where economic situation is very poor. So they are the ones who are taking this money, and it works. So if anybody wants to say, if microcredit works, find out whether microcredit works in a transparent system. You say, Bangladesh is a kind of country of corruptions and so on, so they may dupe you to do something else and so on. You make up lots of stories about it, but here it's all transparent, everything is there. See whether the system works or not, whether people like it or not.
So we're here at a time of great global uncertainty, particularly in the climate arena. Things are getting worse, the wild extremes are getting worse, and countries like yours are in the teeth of it. But also in the sense of rivalries between nations and just global security on the whole. What's your sense of how that's playing out generally around the world, and also Bangladesh's role?
Well, I'm not a politician, so I'm not kind of making such observations, studies and so on. So I will not make any comment on that. So far as Bangladesh is concerned, we are all friends. They want to be helpful, we want their help. So we work together, every country. We have no problem.
Finally, as you look back over your life, do you think you ever thought you'd be anything close to the position you're now in, leading the nation?
Well, it's a very funny thing because people always keep saying that you will be running the country.
Right.
Yeah. So I was always saying no, not to me. Yeah. So I was invited to form the government back now, several years back, when there's a transitional government to be formed. I was approached. Army came to tell that you take over now. I said, no, not me, find somebody else. So they stayed on the whole night to try to persuade. So I said no, and I stayed with no. I didn't take it. So ever since that, every time something happens, he is the one who has to be the head of the government. So this is going on and on. It's not something new for me. I was in the government, in a caretaker government, in one of the earlier one. So that was one stint that I had, very short period of time, 90 days of it. So ever since those occasions came, and I was invited to take over and take oath right now, I said, no, not me. So I had the history of refusing it repeatedly. And this time I refused first, then finally I agreed.
Mohammed Yunus, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.